everyone, my name's Tandora, and me and my partner Kaylin are going to be reading a really cool book to you guys today.
The book we are reading to you guys is called The Boy Who Dreamed of Infinity by Amy Alznauer, illustrated by Daniel Meyers.
What do you think this book will be about? What do you think it'll be about, Kaylin?
I think this book will be about a little boy who loves numbers. While we read, think about how you connect to something or someone in the story.
Great. Ready to read? Let's go.
The Boy Who Dreamed of Infinity, read by Kaylin Craig and Tandora Giles. Today the world is small. With a single click, you can see anywhere or speak to anyone. But 100 years ago, the world was big. It took weeks to send a letter by steamer from here all the way to there. Back then, if you had an idea, even a rare and wonderful idea, on one side of the world, people on the other side might never know. Your ideas might forever stay where they began, right here. In a small village in South India by the banks of the Kaveri River in Inammas Arms, Amma held her new baby. She touched his tiny pink tongue and told him about his grandmother's dream. Before you were even born, she said, the goddess Namagiri leaned down and whispered in your grandmother's ear that someday she would write the thoughts of God on your tongue. Amma gazed into her baby's bright eyes. But how could someone so small ever grow up to say something so big? Through the window with no glass, she showed him the stars. I will call you Romanohon, she said. For 3 years, he stayed quiet as a mouse. Swami, my little lord, Amma begged. What are you thinking?
Romanohon just lined up the copper pots across the floor, and when he didn't get his cured rice and mango, he rolled in the monsoon mud. His grandfather tried to help. He held Romanohon's finger, and together they traced numbers in rice. Anrun, Indarun, Manrun. His grandfather counted out loud into Mal. 1, 2, 3. Soon, Romanohon began to talk. What is small, he asked. He imagined the world with only one man, before anyone was there to hear him speak. What is big? He looked up at the big blue space between the clouds. At 5 years old, long hair up in a knot, white dhoti tied around his waist, he started school. Just half a dozen boys on the front porch of a house. But when the teacher took no interest in his odd questions, Romanohon grew bored. He tried again and again to sneak away.
As he grew, he often thought about his grandmother's dream. There was something out there beyond his tiny stucco house, whispering. Was it calling him? Nah, 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 said the goats in the street. What else is small? Romanohon wondered. He remembered the legend of the single egg that cracked open to reveal the entire universe. He thought about a mango. A mango is like an egg, it is just one thing. But if I chop it in two, then chop the half in two, and keep on chopping, I get more and more bits, on and on, endlessly, to an infinity I could never ever reach. Yet when I put them back together, I still have just one mango.
He loved this idea, small and big, each inside the other. If he could crack the number 1 open and find infinity, what secrets would he discover inside other numbers? It felt like he was setting out on a grand chase. Numbers were everywhere, in the squares of light pricking through the thatched roof, in the gods dancing on the temple tower, in the clouds that formed and reformed in the sky. Every day he wrote numbers in the sand, on his slate, on slips of paper, his slender fingers flying. Each number was a new catch. In school, numbers were different, stiff and straight, obeying the rules. When the children chanted sums, Romanohon thought, but aren't there more sums inside of those sums? He broke the numbers into smaller and smaller bits until he only had ones. He found all the sums they had missed. Is every number like this? A single body with many parts? Ignoring the class, he scratched wildly on his slate, his elbow darting up to erase. What are you thinking? Said the schoolmaster, making such a racket on your slate and refusing to listen. He made Romanohon put his finger, shh, over his lips and sit in the corner. Romanohon hated school. Once the town constable had to chase him back to his studies, so every year his parents tried a different school. They finally settled on Kanjaman Primary.
Amma sang songs in the temple. Appa sold fabric in a shop. His friends played goli gundo, shooting marbles in the street. But Romanohon was shy and liked to be alone. Every day, he rushed home from school to sit on the front pile of his house, long hair coming loose from its knot, slayed across his knees. Often it looked like he was staring off into nowhere, but it was not nowhere. Out there, numbers leaped and roared. He could see them even when he closed his eyes. "Are you a genius?" a friend called up to him one day. "I don't know," Romanohon called back, "but if I am, my elbow is making a genius of me." He held up his elbow, smudged from erasing the slate. Then he was at it again, writing and erasing as if perfecting a sketch. What else is big, he needed to know. If I can break a number into so many sums, how many sums do I get if I take bigger and bigger numbers? When will it be too big to count? He wrote until his fingers ached. In the summers, when it was too hot to think, he chalked numbers on the cool temple floor. High up in the pillars, bats fluttered. He was like an archaeologist, dusting off the hidden bones of each number to find its structure. Do numbers also break apart by multiplying? He wondered. Now he ended up with numbers like 2 and 3 and 5, with no smaller pairs inside them. How many numbers like this are there, and how do I find them? There was no book with an answer, no one to ask. He just had to write and think.
In the evenings, while Romanohon scribbled away and stuffed sticky rice balls in his mouth, Amma sang about the gods. She told of the tiny fish who grew to be as big as an ocean, and the little boy who once saw a great golden lion man break out of a pillar of stone. Everything in the whole world is about small and big, thought Romanohon. He watched a spark float up and away from the fire.
And at night while he slept, numbers came whispering in dreams. When he woke, an idea would be there as if placed on the tip of his tongue. He'd write furiously, trying to catch the golden thought before it fled.
When Romanohon turned 10 years old, he entered Kumbuka Town High School, where the schoolmaster finally saw that he was lightning quick. He solved tricky problems in a flash. He made up magic squares to stump his friends. Often, Romanohon was quiet, but when his classmates got him talking, the words gushed out and his eyes glowed, mischievous and sparkling. He was like no other they had ever known.
He took food to the man who ranted down by the Kaveri River. The man stared into the sun and said he could see odd creatures running about, but this didn't seem strange at all to Romanohon. Sometimes even invisible things can be real, he told his friends. When he was 15 years old, he got his hands on a college math book. It had thousands of questions but no answers. Romanohon answered the questions, all of them, and when the questions ran out, he made up more. He started writing down his ideas in a notebook with a green pen. The blank pages thrilled him, all that paper just waiting for his work. Romanohon tried to write neatly, but then he'd catch the whisper of an idea. Numbers would rush across the pages in circles and packs. Amma watched him, remembering the dream. Are these the thoughts Namagiri placed on his tongue? She wondered.
As Romanohon grew older, his questions grew bigger. How many sums are inside 200? How many numbers, like 2 and 3 and 5, are there up to 10 million? It would take an impossibly long time to count that high. He discovered intricate formulas and patterns to answer his questions. No one told him how math is supposed to be done, so he did it his own way. He devised symbols of his own. He worked out ideas no one had ever thought before. Will an endless tiny numbers add up to one for infinity? Will it be like the bits of mango or the countless stars in the sky? He found beautiful ways to tell different lists apart.
But when Romanohon entered college, he couldn't focus on anything except math, and he flunked out. At 20 years old, he had nothing. No college degree, no job, only a notebook covered in strange green ink. He was back on the pile of his house, writing fervently on his slate. Sometimes his family didn't have enough to eat, so a neighbor fed him butter and rice. Amma put her foot down. She'd had enough of sitting on porches and writing on slates. She arranged his marriage and demanded that Romanohon get a job. Carrying his notebooks under his arm like a diploma, he went door to door asking for work. Everyone saw that he was brilliant, maybe even a genius, but they didn't quite know what to do with him. He finally landed a job as a clerk keeping accounts at the Port Trust in Madras.
Still, he did math every chance he got, sometimes late into the night, scraping on his slate. One night, tired of the noise, a friend dumped a bucket of water on his head and cried, "What are you thinking?" Romanohon looked up, his long hair dripping, his eyes shining. "I am small," he said. "God is big. I am trying to learn the thoughts of God." He often walked on the long Madras beach and looked out at the ocean. I am like the first man in the world with no one to hear me speak, he thought. He watched the steamers pass in the distance. Were these thoughts really meant for him alone? Secrets to be caught and kept forever? Wasn't there anyone, anywhere out there he could tell?
Local mathematicians and British overseers at the Port Trust became convinced that Romanohon was extraordinary, but nobody they knew was working on similar mathematical ideas. Was anybody in the world? They urged him to write a letter. I begged to introduce myself, he began, and wrote out his strange symbols and ideas. He sent the letter by steamer to Cambridge University, one of the great mathematical centers in England. Weeks went by, nothing. He tried again and again.
Romanohon would try one more time. He wrote G.H. Hardy, one of the top mathematicians at Cambridge. He had recently discovered Hardy's panfit to infinity. Maybe Hardy would understand. Romanohon waited and waited. Finally, a letter came back, and Romanohon tore it open. Hardy was astonished. How did Romanohon come up with such outlandish, magnificent ideas, and would he come to England? Romanohon's whole life had been building to this moment. He desperately wanted to share his work, but could he really leave his home? He went to the temple to pray. After some time, a whisper seemed to come in a dream. Speak the thoughts on your tongue.
So Romanohon said goodbye to Amma and Appa and his young wife. He cut his long hair, and on a bright March morning in 1914, he packed up his notebooks, took one small step onto the steamer, and set out from here all the way to there. As he rocked on the steamer and gazed up at the great night sky, so full of stars that it looked like a glittering infinity, he never could have guessed that someday scientists would use his ideas to help explore that sky, and that his work would change the course of mathematics forever. 100 years later, people would still search his notebooks in wonderment, trying to discover what he was thinking.
Welcome back. Hey readers, remember when we asked you to think about how you connect to something or someone in the story while it was read aloud?
How do you connect to the story? Turn and talk to your partner in school, or a sibling, friend, or adult at home.
Tandora, how did you connect to the story?
Well, when I was younger, I really liked math, but I wasn't very good at it, so a lot of people made fun of me for that.
Yeah, me too. I liked math too, but I still wasn't good at it.
Thank you for reading with us today, everyone.
I had a lot of fun. I hope we can read again soon.